while hiking southbound on the Appalachian Trail, I found myself moving through the relatively short stretch that crosses Maryland. Compared to some of the more rugged or remote sections of the trail, Maryland can feel like a bit of a break: fewer steep climbs, decent footpaths, and more frequent access to towns. But what happened to me in that stretch was anything but relaxing. It turned into one of the most unnerving and stressful days I had on the entire trail. In the span of just a few hours, I was involved in 3 separate off-leash dog incidents, each escalating in intensity and unpredictability. It wasn't just frustrating, it was borderline dangerous. I'd had my fair share of strange encounters on the trail, but this string of aggressive dog run-ins stood out. The first encounter happened just as the morning fog was starting to lift. I was moving through a wooded section with soft, pine-covered ground, when a dog appeared over a small rise ahead. It was a blue heeler, a herding breed, known for being smart and energetic but also extremely territorial. I didn't see the owners at first, just this dog barreling over the hill like it had a mission. Its eyes locked on me, and within seconds, it was behind me, circling, trying to nip at the back of my legs. Instinct kicked in. I immediately dropped into a defensive stance and started using my trekking poles to keep it away from my ankles. It wasn't playing. This dog was baring its teeth and lunging, trying to land a bite. It wasn't scared of me either. It was fast, low to the ground, and laser-focused on keeping me off balance. The owners finally crested the hill, about 30 yards back, and started calling for the dog, though not very effectively. I was too focused on defending myself to pay attention to their tone at first, but when I did, I realized something infuriating: they weren't just yelling at their dog, they were yelling at me. Apparently, they took issue with me using my trekking poles to keep their dog away from my legs. As they got closer, it became clear they thought I was overreacting. I shouted that their dog had been trying to bite me, and they shouted back, defending it like it was a misunderstood puppy. It escalated quickly into a full-on argument right there on the trail. Eventually, they managed to grab the dog and leash it, but the whole situation left me rattled and frustrated. I hiked away faster than usual, trying to shake off the adrenaline and regain some peace of mind. I didn't even get a full hour of calm before the next encounter. This time, I was walking across a wide, grassy clearing, one of those stretches where the trail opens up under the sky for a bit, and you can enjoy some open space. I had just started to settle into a rhythm again when I noticed movement on the edge of the tree line to my right. Out of the woods came this massive dog. At first glance, I thought it might be a Great Dane, or possibly even a Kangal, it was that big. It came trotting straight toward me, tongue out, not barking, just focused. I froze for a second. With no leash and no owner in sight, my heart immediately started pounding. After what had just happened with the healer, I wasn't about to take any chances. I shouted out loud, hoping someone nearby would call their dog off. "Hey! Someone call your dog." No response. No voice. No sounds. Just me and this massive animal closing the distance between us. It reached me in seconds and started sniffing around, tail wagging lazily. To my immense relief, this dog wasn't aggressive. He was actually pretty chill. Still, I kept my poles ready, just in case. A moment later, a guy ambled out of the woods, clearly in no rush, leash hanging loose in his hand. I turned toward him and said, "Hey, your dog scared the crap out of me." He looked at me like I was being dramatic and simply shrugged. No apology, no recognition of how dangerous that moment had felt from my side. I didn't even bother to argue. I just shook my head and kept moving. I'd had enough of off-leash dogs for the day, or so I thought. The third encounter came during a steep climb out of a river gorge. It had been a long morning already, and I was focused on the switchbacks, breathing heavily, one step at a time. The trail here was narrow, cut into the side of the slope, and as I came around a curve, I suddenly heard barking, sharp, fast, and close. A medium-sized dog came flying around the corner from above, barking its head off and charging toward me. The switchback had placed the dog just above eye level, and the incline made the whole situation even more unsettling. There was nowhere for me to go, no wide spot to step off trail, and the dog was clearly amped up. Just as I was about to defend myself again, a man appeared behind the dog, huffing and red-faced. He ran up, quickly clipped the leash on, and said, "Sorry." That might have been enough if he had stopped there, but he added, "He won't bite you." I snapped. Not because of just this dog, but because of all the emotional build-up from the day. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "I don't know that." He looked taken aback, maybe even a little embarrassed. But at that point, I didn't care. I was exhausted and on edge. I just wanted some peace on the trail. Across the entire rest of the Appalachian Trail, from Georgia to Maine, I only had one other threatening dog experience, and that was during a road walk into town to resupply. Even then, I was able to keep the dog at bay with my trekking poles. It was unnerving, but isolated. That's what made that day in Maryland so surreal. 3 separate, unconnected dog encounters, 2 aggressive, 1 startling, and all within a single stretch of a few hours. I've met bears on trail. I've weathered storms, slipped on ice, and heard strange noises at night. But those dogs? That kind of unpredictable, human-fueled chaos is a different kind of stress entirely. I love dogs. I really do. But when you're deep in the woods, vulnerable and alone, and someone's pet turns aggressive, it changes the whole energy of the day. I wasn't just walking anymore, I was watching my back, scanning ahead, and tensing up at every bark or crunch of twigs. That day reminded me that it's not always the wild animals you need to worry about. Sometimes it's the ones people bring with them, and the people themselves. If you love true hiking scary stories or true scary camping hiking stories, then you are in the right place. Please subscribe so that you will be updated on our weekly true scary hiking stories. Also, like our true scary horror stories hiking. It encourages us to deliver more. In 2023, I was hiking southbound on the Appalachian Trail. I had made it through Damascus, Virginia, a popular trail town known for its friendliness and well-earned title of Trail Town USA. Spirits were high, the weather was decent, and I felt strong and in rhythm. After a long day on the trail, I decided to camp for the night about 200 yards north of Cross Mountain Road. It wasn't an official campsite, just a quiet spot off-trail that looked perfect for hammock camping. I set up between 2 sturdy trees, tied off the foot of my hammock to one, and stowed my backpack against the same trunk. I followed my usual end-of-day routine: eat, clean up, hang the bear bag with my food far from camp, and settle into the hammock. I remember how still the woods were that night, cool, damp air, the faint rustle of leaves in the breeze. The rhythmic chirp of crickets lulled me to sleep. Everything seemed peaceful. But that calm was shattered at first light. It started with a low, deep snuffling sound, slow and methodical, as if something was sweeping the forest floor with its nose. Even half asleep, I knew exactly what it was. You don't mistake that sound for anything else when you've spent enough nights alone in the woods. A bear. My heart began to pound before I even opened my eyes. I froze, unsure of how close it really was. But then I felt a slight tug, something had brushed my hammock from beneath. My breath caught. The bear was directly below me. It didn't growl or huff. It wasn't making any sudden moves. But it was interested in something, specifically, my backpack, which I had left propped against the same tree that was anchoring my hammock. The bear began to sniff it with more purpose, pawing at it gently at first. That was when my survival instincts overrode caution. I exploded into a frenzy of shouting, yelling at the top of my lungs to try to scare it off. I flipped my hammock over in a panic, scrambling to get out and make myself seem larger. In the process, I hit the ground hard, my voice bouncing off the trees. You'd think that all that noise and commotion would have sent the bear running, but it didn't. Not right away. It didn't charge either, but instead stepped in even closer and clamped onto the pack. I watched in disbelief as it began to drag it. I was no more than 6 feet away. If I reached out fully, I could have touched it. The thing about black bears is that they're unpredictable. Most of the time, they're skittish. Make a little noise, and they'll scatter. But sometimes, especially when food is involved, or even just a familiar scent, they become persistent. Curious. Even bold. And that's what I was dealing with now. The bear sniffed and tugged, pawing at the pack like a stubborn dog with a toy. My mind raced. What did I leave in there? My food was properly hung, no meals, no snacks left behind. But maybe there was an odor. Grease from my cook pot, an old protein bar wrapper I'd missed, or even something as innocent as the smell of sweat or scented lip balm. Whatever it was, the bear wanted it. I kept yelling. Loud, aggressive, commanding. I picked up a rock and slammed it against the trunk. That did it. The bear suddenly turned, locked eyes with me for the briefest moment, then bolted down the slope like a shadow fleeing the light. The forest swallowed it in seconds. I stood there panting, heart still thudding in my chest. The pack was scuffed but intact. A few straps had been stretched, and some small items had been scattered, but it could have been much worse. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. The sun was barely up. The sky was still tinted with that soft bluish gray of early morning, and already my day had started with an adrenaline spike. Later that day, as I passed through a gap and encountered a few northbound hikers, I recounted what had happened. One of them, a father hiking with his teenage son, immediately shared their own story. Just the night before, they had camped about a mile north of where I had been. That same bear, most likely, had wandered into their sight during the night. It didn't just sniff around, either. It had taken one of their fanny packs, snatched it right from under their vestibule, and dragged it into the woods. They'd found it the next morning, shredded and scattered. Unfortunately, it had contained photo equipment, gear that was now completely destroyed. The father was calm as he told the story, but you could hear the frustration in his voice. All it took was one curious bear and a moment of human error for valuable memories to be lost. It didn't take long for word to spread. Hikers talk. Stories pass up and down the trail like wind through the trees. By the time I hit the next shelter, I heard that the section around Cross Mountain had been temporarily closed to overnight camping. Too many encounters, too much risk. The trail managers had to act fast to avoid anyone else getting hurt, or the bear being habituated to humans and ultimately euthanized, which sadly is often the end result of repeated food-related incidents. That day stuck with me long after I left Virginia behind. I had followed all the rules. My food was hung, my trash was packed out, my cooking area was clean. But still, the bear came into camp. Still, it found a reason to investigate. It reminded me that no matter how prepared you are, nature is never truly predictable. I also realized how much even small lapses, leaving gear with residual smells too close to camp, or underestimating an animal's curiosity, can invite trouble. You never know which moment will turn from routine to critical. From that day on, I never again leaned my pack against a tree near where I slept. Even if I thought it was clean, I treated it like a beacon for wildlife. It got hung right next to the bear bag, far from camp, every single night. Looking back, I feel lucky. Lucky that the bear wasn't more aggressive. Lucky, I didn't get hurt. Lucky that all I lost was a bit of peace of mind and a couple of hours of sleep. But it was also a wake-up call, a reminder that even in a well-traveled area, deep in the heart of Appalachia, you're still in their territory. What are your thoughts about this true hiking scary stories? Let's know in the comments section. When I was 16, my boyfriend at the time and I decided to head off into the mountains for an extended camping adventure. We were young, curious, and wildly unprepared for what true wilderness survival entailed. The plan was simple: stay as long as we could, live off the land, and soak in the experience. In reality, we lasted just 15 days. The first few days were incredible. It felt like the ultimate getaway, crisp mountain air, star-filled skies, and endless forest to explore. But after nearly a week, something changed. We both started to sense that we weren't alone. It wasn't like seeing something or hearing footsteps, it was just a feeling, a weight in the air. You try to rationalize it as isolation playing tricks on your mind, but the unease only grew stronger. No matter where we hiked, we couldn't shake the sense of being watched. Every shadow felt deeper, every sound a little too close. Still, we shrugged it off. We were stubborn teenagers and convinced ourselves it was just nerves. One afternoon, we went out to find water and decided to follow a stream that snaked through the woods. We'd done this kind of thing before, jumping across rocks, teasing each other about who would fall in first. It was fun, light-hearted, almost enough to make us forget that uneasy feeling that had been lingering. But the terrain began to shift, and eventually, we had to move away from the water. As we ventured deeper into the forest, we tied bandanas and whatever else we had to trees to avoid getting lost. We weren't paying attention to distance, just letting curiosity pull us farther in. Before we knew it, we stumbled into a strange clearing, about 100 feet wide, completely circular, and eerily out of place given how far off the beaten path we were. My boyfriend was a short distance ahead of me, and we both stopped walking at the exact same time. He turned around, and we just locked eyes, both of us frozen in a shared, unspoken fear. And then it happened. A roar unlike anything I've ever heard tore through the forest, deep, guttural, deafening. It lasted maybe 30 seconds, but it felt like forever. The ground beneath us shook. Trees quivered. I tried to scan the tree line, but my panic made it impossible to focus beyond the space between me and my boyfriend. When it finally stopped, we didn't run. We didn't speak. We didn't even look at each other. We just turned and started walking back. There was no discussion, no debate. We simply knew it was time to leave. That moment never left me. In fact, we didn't even talk about it until weeks later, like it was too heavy to say out loud. When we got back to camp, the silence between us was thick. Then we noticed something that sent another chill down our spines. The tent zipper was wide open. All the way. We both knew we hadn't left it like that. We looked at each other, but again, didn't say anything. We were too freaked out to process it. We didn't have the energy to hike out that night. Instead, we crawled into the tent, still silent, and laid there until morning, flinching at every sound. The woods had never felt so alive, so threatening. The next morning, things got even stranger. I went to grab food and noticed that all our clothes had been unfolded and strewn about. Some of the food packaging had been opened, but nothing was actually missing. Even more disturbing, my books were just gone. Vanished. That moment was the turning point. Whatever fun or adventure we thought we were having had shifted into something darker. The fear wasn't subtle anymore, it was constant. We stayed a couple more days, but the weird occurrences didn't stop. Eventually, we decided it wasn't worth it. We didn't pack up. We didn't clean our site. We left everything behind: tent, clothes, food, cooking gear. We just walked. By the time we made it down the mountain, it was pitch black. The cicadas were screaming and every rustle behind us felt like we were being followed, even after we hit the main road. About a week later, we decided we couldn't leave our gear up there. We set out around 6 a.m., determined to retrieve what we'd left behind. Neither of us wanted to go back, but we figured it was necessary. What we found when we returned was worse than expected. Our two-person tent had been ripped apart, shredded into dozens of pieces. Everything else, clothes, supplies, was scattered as if a tornado had hit the site. My first thought was a bear, maybe. But the tent, something about the way it was destroyed didn't sit right. Bears can be destructive, sure, but this looked almost deliberate. Like something, or someone, wanted to send a message. To this day, I still don't know what we encountered. Maybe it was a bizarre natural event, something that could be explained scientifically. Or maybe it was something else entirely, something that can't be explained. Either way, that trip left a permanent mark on both of us. We went looking for an adventure, and we definitely found something. Just not the kind we had in mind.